Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I am Matterall. Today is January 31st. We're finishing the first month in 2021. And we have a bunch of news for you about EVE Online coming up next. We're going to talk about the stuff going on in the war, from the Breakout to the the Keepstar that went down in 1 TAC S. The M2 Breakout, of course. We'll go up north, talk about Fraternity, and then back into HiSec, or actually the middle of Sync Liaison, talk about Basgerin and what happened there. To do all that, we have great advanced players from all over EVE Online, and let's get them introduced, including Arcia.
Hey, how you doing?
Really good. So Arcia handles a lot of fleet commanding in faction warfare, role-playing, and of course Eden Com, and all kinds of stuff in that middle section of the map. With us we have Elise Randolph.
Hello, everyone.
Elise, sorry, these people need no explanation or introductions, but I got to give them anyway. Elise does a lot of nullsec history, a lot of configurations of how to put ships together and what works and what doesn't, but A to Z, Elise Randolph in nullsec and more. We also have Sutonia. How's it going, Sutonia?
Doing pretty well. Hello, everyone.
Sutonia does also fleet commanding and soloing, and you'll know him from his streams. He's also a CCP partner, as is Arcia. So you can, and also a CSM member, a former CSM member, knows a lot about how to put things together and what doctrines work. And of course, he is a database mind of the statistics in the game. We also have Kuda with us today. You might remember him from Cap Stable. How you doing, Kuda? Push. Oh no, we lost your mic. How do we lose your mic? All right, he's an IT guy. He'll get this fixed. There he is. Try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. How you doing, Kuda? You're from Cap Stable a long time ago. A great show. Very polished. And you were the industry guy that was in Brave, right? So you were kind of newish to the game at the time?
Somewhat newish. I'd been playing for a few years at that point. We were new to Null for sure. I'd been doing a lot of high-sec mining. That's kind of where I started. But yeah, I'm flying with Blades of Grass these days. And Cap Stable, yeah, still pod faded, a mothballed project, but a lot of good memories and a good group of guys. So
yeah, great content too. And I see a picture of a blue Jesus behind you and a fish tank. Is that right? Or
that is Tupac and a fish tank, yes.
Okay. Well, that was close. Awesome. Well, it's good to see you. Good to see you back. Glad you're around. There it is. That makes sense. All right, let's get started. Well, that was just about as comical as welcoming Daddy Deep yesterday or last week. He was the Keepstar gunner from Sixth Empire. And of course, he would have a name like Daddy Deep. If you know anything about Sixth Empire, it makes total sense. Apparently,
Can you please stop saying it over and over again, Matterall?
I'm doing it for you, Saturday. I've never seen you laugh so hard. But he used a porn generator, a porn name generator to get all his names. So that's where that comes from. So mystery solved.
Yeah, and then all you asked him how good does it feel to be inside a Keepstar?
Yeah.
It was getting pretty bad.
It was getting really bad. So we will let's turn this car around, shall we? Let's talk about EVE Online. All right. What happened in EVE Online? I guess the biggest story of the week was really that breakout, right?
Yeah, I think so. NM2 PAPI, they kind of got their groove back in a way in this whole war. They managed to form pretty big. They got their Titans that were trapped below the Keepstar and MTAC2 that is currently being hell camped by the Imperium. They managed to rescue them. They took out 6 Imperium Titans while losing 6 of their own, so it was pretty much about as even a trade as you can get. The cost of all this was, I think, 414 dreads died from the PAPI side. A massive death toll. The dreads did actually start shooting their own wrecks as they were going down. I'd say probably the Imperium looted a good 100 or so of those wrecks, but 300 or so were probably killed. So Imperium got a nice payday from it. Everyone left M2 feeling really good about it. PAPI is completely back to form. They did lose, I'd say, a month of progress in their war after MTAC 2, but it looks like they've more or less completely rebounded. We saw them just yesterday attack the MTAC 2 iHub to try and reconquer that. We saw a few other moves around Delve. They've been consistently winning timers in Delve. Crucially, they are losing timers in Ketch and I think Esoteria as well. So the Imperium has changed their tactic in the month of January, and they've spread around the forces a bit much. But the Imperium also view that whole breakout attempt as a win, right? They killed 420 dreads almost, which would have been great. Their morale is more or less at an all-time high. They're putting more bodies in fleet than they were this time a month ago. So like before M2. So both sides are somehow coming out of this with a positive. Again, just completely baffling that in a war that's been going on for almost 7 months, both sides are completely adamant that they're winning right now.
We like that, right?
Yeah, that is good, but it's generally unheard of in EVE. Generally, someone feels like they're the underdog. At this time, both sides are saying, yeah, this is going just how we want it, at least for PAPI now. PAPI a couple weeks ago, not so much, but PAPI now, they've got their group back. They've rescued most of their more active Titans that were below the Keepstar. They do have quite a few Titans and Supers that are still above the Keepstar, the M2 TAC Keepstar. But now they have the option of, hey, we have a unified, more or less, Titan fleet that we can drop at the top to rescue those people. We have a game plan for how to get these people out. We know that it'll cost a few hundred dreads. I think if they had to do it over, they'd probably risk 100 of the dreads instead of 400. But it might have just bought enough time to give the Imperium a little bit of pause before free firing their doomsdays in the face of 400 dreads, because that is a spooky proposition.
It did work, didn't it? Like, what was the escalation pattern of that battle?
So in the weeks leading up to it, last 2 weeks or so, whenever the Imperium wouldn't form for something, or didn't want to fight PAPI, who kind of edged out a little bit of an advantage in the U.S. time zone, numbers wise, PAPI would just go into MTAC or M2 TAC and start shooting bubbles. This would force the Imperium to respond because they place such a heavy importance on the Hell Camp in M2. And they would come in and they would fight. So PAPI had been doing that for weeks and weeks, or for 2 or 3 weeks, to try and rebuild a little bit of momentum on their side, and just poke and make sure that the Imperium were like honestly manning the fort instead of just pretending to be there and not really paying attention to it. So they killed some bubbles. We saw before Tuesday there was an attempt to break people out of the top. PAPI were in M2 and cleaned out the top bubbles over the course of like 2 or 3 hours. Then they started logging Supers and Titans on like 1 or 2 at a time to do a breakout attempt. It ended up costing them 2 nixes because they decided, hey, logging in piecemeal is not going to work. We got to do it all at the same time. So that first one was a bit of a proof of concept. So for the second attempt, they had again started just poking M2 over and over again. So the Imperium never really knew when that like big attempt was going to happen. Try to wear them down a little bit. And then they just logged everything in, jumped in a bunch of Supers, jumped in extra dreads, and just kept jumping in dreads. The idea was that there would be so many dreads on the field for PAPI, not only to clear the bubbles, But if the Imperium decided to detether their Titans on the Keepstar and start free firing Doomsdays, that it would cost them, right? So they couldn't just free fire Doomsdays like they did before, because now there was a counter to them with the Dreads. So they'd detether, try and shoot a Nyx or shoot a Titan or something, and then the Dreads would immediately turn off of the bubbles onto them. I believe PAPI did some napkin math, maybe a little bit more than napkin math, and figured out that a Dread in Siege can kill a T2 large bubble in something like 32 seconds. So it all went pretty fast. The bubbles all died relatively quickly. And then the subcaps on field were there just to kill Dictors. And make sure those guys get out. And it was a pretty graceful exit for the PAPI Titans and Supers. They were able to warp off the new ones that they brought in, because they did bring additional Supers with them. They were to bring Capitals off. Carriers almost all got out. But every Dread that jumped in died. Like there was no hope for those Dreads. They were told to siege green, not even try to get out. Because they were just done.
PC Gamer's headline was that commandos go into this, prison camp and break out their comrades. And that's kind of what it was. With Suicide Dreads, I guess, we're not coming back.
Yeah, it does kind of feel like an A-team type of thing. But, in retrospect, 100 and something Dreads probably would have done the trick too, and it would have kept the Butcher's bill really low. But after the first M2, I think the attempt that got all the Titans stuck there in the first place, I think the last thing PAPI wanted to do was give it like a half measure and risk that being like, oh, we just fed an extra 100 Dreads and got nothing out of this. So they went a little bit overboard. They're just like, you know what, let's just give it a little bit too much. Let's dial this up to 12 and just to ensure that we get everything out here. Because a lot was riding on that for PAPI. They wanted to be able to prove that, hey, we're able to function in this war. We're able to keep on the path that we've been doing. We want our members to have confidence in our plan and stuff like that. And it worked for them, right? So the Imperiums comes out of that and says, hey, we killed 400 Dreads. You lost 400 Dreads because you made a bad call. Ha, 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 ha. We're superior. But if you look at what happened in FWST and the YZ9 and the Keepstars that were anchoring there, similar number of Imperium Dreads died trying to keep a Keepstar out of Delve, which was, as we know now, inevitable. So it's kind of, I guess it kind of evens out. The mistakes are more or less a little bit even. Of course, the Imperium has a massive advantage because it killed like 300 Titans in 4 days. And that feels incredible because no one's ever done that in a video game ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, Vili did say, we did interview him, and he said that he was nervous for the first time in a long time, or he had the shakes for the first time in a long time, and that this could have been a backbreaking defeat if it had gone sideways. So I guess the 400 Dreads were a lot of insurance in that sense.
Yeah, and the Imperium looked at that the 400 Dreads, and they're like, oh, well, Dreads are probably more useful in the day-to-day things, so we're feeling pretty good about this. They took a fight again, and PAPI undocked 600 Dreads, I think a day or two afterwards. So the idea that PAPI traded their Dread cash for some extra Titans, not so much the case. Those Dreads were already, I hate using the term already replaced, but given that this plan was in development for some time, some extra Dread hulls were made. And I was wondering a little bit why, someone had ordered 80 Dreads for me, because I had been producing Dreads for just memes. I was like, yeah, I can't actually build 80 Dreads, I'm not building Dreads anymore. I did 100 and that was it.
This is a large order.
Okay, it's fine. Yeah.
Kuda, you used to build stuff, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely built a little bit back in the day.
What's it like to build a Dread? Did you ever build any of those?
No, we stuck mostly with freighters and jump freighters. So
same kind of thing. It takes like a week, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think after I took a break, the Corp may have snuck out a Titan on a little side project, but
just a little Titan here.
Well, it was our first one ever, and I think it's the only one to date we've ever done. So it was kind of a bบdeal. So it was great. It blows my mind how much cheaper things have kind of got since we kind of mothballed Cap Stable back in the day. As far as a Titan was 120 billion back then, and now you're seeing kill mails for 80, 85 billion. It's kind of a standard issue.
Yeah, while you were gone, ... we'll get you caught up. So, Tonya, do you have any observations, or Arcia, on the breakout for M2? Anything there interesting interest you or not?
Well, it's nice to see PAPI kind of get the groove back, like Elise said, because I think for like the first 2 weeks after M2, it was looking a little dark for them, but now they're back, and it's kind of awesome that like both sides kind of have like now at their like highest morale sort of peaks. Sort of like Goons had their like huge morale boost after M2, after they kind of lost like I think like 3 or 4 Keepstars in Delve, and then now PAPI are back, and now we get to see like both sides clash into each other while they're kind of both at like their peak sort of numbers for a while.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that morale also translates into people just being in space casually, as well as being in place in space for operations. So like what something like M2 might mean to like a more small gang focused player is that when both sides of the war are feeling good, that whole Delve Aquarius area is really a war zone, and it's really fun to roam in that area. Like I was roaming last night in Delve, and I was fighting both. I was seeing both goons and tests, like in numbers. Pretty much every other jump, there was something for me to shoot, and like a week or two ago, it wasn't really like that in that area because it kind of cooled off after being so hot at the beginning. So for somebody who doesn't particularly care what happened in M2 personally, it's good that both sides are flying around in space and they want to play the game, because I want to shoot both sides.
Does that give you like new obstacles? Like you have to take evasive maneuvers more often and work around something? Does it make it more interesting, or are you really just looking for targets?
Yeah, like when there's gigantic group, like if there's like 70 people camping a gate, I don't want to jump into it, right? So a lot of times you'll look for like a system that has activity, but not too much activity when you're roaming like that. And sometimes activity, like I'm not going to go to M2, right? But I was around FWST and all that NPC Delve area, and it was really, really, really fun. Like everybody in Alliance was talking about the 1v1 Abyssal BCs, and I killed some Goon Drake with a Harbinger, and I'm like, am I doing it right? Because it wasn't in the Abyssal, but it was still a 1v1 BC.
I would like to see Arcia camp in M2.
I always joke on the stream that both sides of the war surrender to me when I kill something stupid like an Ishtar. Like, yeah, I killed a test Ishtar, both sides of the war surrender to me, it's over. And that's just like a running meme on my stream.
It's awesome.
To Arcia's point, there is a lot of activity just in space, right? If you pull up .lan and just look at the iHubs that are contested, the entire, like every constellation that's right next to T5 and 1DQ, they're contested. There's a little rash breaking out there, and those fights are much more spread out. Obviously, they're Aegis soft, so you can't just plop 1,000 Titans onto a grid and just say you're going to win. You have to go within the constellation, attack the nodes and stuff like that. And that's the type of fighting that we've been seeing a lot in the last 10, 15 days. And those fights have started to heat up, and both sides are actually coming to the table for it. So it's very cool. There is a big timer today in M2 TAC again. It's for the iHub there. PAPI attacked the iHub, I believe, on Friday. They successfully contested it. It took some time. They won a little fight around there. And now at I think 21:30, that timer comes out. So that constellation again is going to be on fire as PAPI tried to get back to the grind and start going into these systems, controlling the iHubs, holding them, building the ADMs up, defending them when they get into assist again.
This may be, they might size each other up, I think, today, right? I mean, because you heard
Yeah, I watched the Meta show yesterday, and Mitani said he's hoping for a fight. They want to fight today. So, I mean, I think that's going to be a fun one to watch and see how it actually goes down. I'd heard that when PAPI undocked all those dreads, it kind of spooked the competition a little bit, and they kind of poked their head back in their hole for a little bit. It was a shock after the damage they did to the dreads the night before. So it's kind of good to see the little back and forth. I mean, I kind of like to see the world burn personally.
I kind of think any dead capital is a good capital. So
Yes.
I hope that both sides lose their entire cap fleets, because that would be really good for the game in general. Like every single cap.
That's
even kill my caps if you want. Right.
I actually think that entire constellation comes out today, right? So it's not just M2, although M2 is sort of like the storied system, and it's a system that has the Keepstar in it out of that constellation. And Detect W is also reinforced as well, and that's also a pretty important system because it's next to T5, and it's also a Keepstar system for Goonswarm as well.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And, if you control the jammer there, it's pretty trivial to bring your entire super fleet in there to try and take that Keepstar down. And it's very hard to contest it.
So we also heard that that is PAPI's, because we talked to Billy again, said that, it was, they try to do things fast without a Sino jammer. And they said, well, and I've heard this from Vince too, we'll just take this a little slower like we were doing it before, where they're methodical about capturing, holding territory, and then sieging the castle kind of thing.
Yeah, the eyes kind of glazed over, or I guess the heart took over instead of the head for a lot of the M2 fights. Like for both sides, the M2 fight kind of made no sense going into it, but both sides were so eager for this massive Titan brawl. And the first one happened, it was dead even. Both sides felt good coming out of it because neither side can kind of really gauge the other side's ability to replace these Titans, because Titans now are very expensive to replace. So it's basically what sort of backstock do you have? And going into the second M2, you could easily just whiff on that if you're PAPI or if you're Imperium. You got what you wanted coming out of it. But both sides were like, man, that last fight a couple of days ago was so good. Let's do it again. I have a feeling the let's do it again mentality is going to be subdued, at least for the PAPI side. They're not going to be gun shy. I don't want to classify it as that, but I think they're going to be a little bit more cerebral in their approach, so they don't end up in a situation where they might lose a bunch of Titans.
I don't think that either side could have not done it again like that. I think if one of the sides opted not to do it again, they would have lost a lot of morale because their members want to fight, right?
Well, what's interesting to me, put aside the whole Horn of Gondor thing where you call in old players on both sides, right? There's horns on both sides where you say, hey, come on, guys, we need your help now. And like crickets. All right, I'll send you some money, but I'm not going to play. That's what you get. But have the servers create a situation where you have a great fight like the armor timer for M2 and everybody comes back. I mean, you saw everybody come back for that fight because they know it's going to be a big one. Both sides are actually going to do it. First of all, it's not going to be blue balls. You're not coming back for that. So when you have a sure thing and it worked before, I've never seen morale, if you want to call it morale. I don't think it's morale, but I've never seen people come back to the game in those numbers. That's the real horn of anything, is servers work, big fight's going to happen, we guarantee it.
Yeah, you saw Titan pilots that hadn't logged in for almost 8 years start logging in on both sides, saying, hey, you know what? I spent my entire EVE career getting to this point of a Titan. I got one and I quit because I hit Everest and I was like, oh, well, there's nothing else to do. This is that thing to do, or M2 is that thing to do. Fights like that are that thing to do. So it's going to definitely bring people back. And that's a very positive thing. I will say one of the, it's hard to call him an unsung hero, but one of the big positives for the Imperium in the last 6 weeks maybe is Mr. V. Mr. V, one of the most storied FCs in EVE Online, used to lead essentially the Imperium. Back then it was the CFC military. He was sort of synonymous with how the Imperium fought. He set their style, he did everything. Then he took a break. Said, you know what, I did everything in EVE, I don't need to do anything more. He comes back for this war, and he's silently, or not silently, he's quietly like taking a more dominant role in the European time zone, giving the Imperium a lot more swagger, giving them a lot of resources to draw on. This guy, he didn't come in and demand respect, right? He came in from the bottom, earned his spot, and now he's, kind of leading incredible fleets in European time zone, doing it well, and giving the Imperium a really good advantage in the European time zone. I think that's part of the reason why you saw a lot of the fighting trend more towards the later U.S. time zones, because maybe at some point PAPI had an advantage in European time zone, but with Mr. V at the helm for the Imperium, I don't think you have that advantage anymore. Maybe I'm overplaying it because I've got tremendous respect for V. He was like one of the people I have seed against, and I always would quiver in my boots a little bit knowing that he was on the other end of the artillery that was shooting me. But I think he's completely changed the dynamic of the war, at least the time zone section of the war.
I think we did see a message come from him when M2 started. I think it was him that, I don't know if he said, let's do this, let's jump in, but he is the one that messaged it out saying like, yeah, let's see what happens or something. There was some message that came from Mr. V at the time that M2, because that M2 was a little bit of an accident, right? It was unexpected. But
yeah,
okay.
M2 is an accident, but I just mean like Mr. V, he's out here in the trenches in the iHub timers, and he can put butts into fleets for the 4 or 5 hours that you need. He can keep them coming back, and you don't have any doubts when he's at the helm, right? So a lot of times, if you're in a fleet, maybe you're like, oh, we lost. I think maybe the FC could have done this. You do not have, like, when Mr. V is leading your fleet, you don't have that, because you're like, well, this guy, he knows better than me. He did the right thing. He explained it to me. Like, he's got a level of communication that is like incredible. So there's never like any doubts. So he'll keep you coming back. I think he's playing a rather large role, and that's a huge win for the Imperium, right? We're talking about the Imperium, compared it to World War B1, when they were kind of losing allies and losing people as the war kind of progressed. World War B2, the Imperium has been like gaining people ever since, right? We had a few big names like Grath move over, right? That's a cool thing. Yeah, you have Elo Knight, who leads fleets in U.S. time zone. You've got Mr. V, like huge wins across the board, right? So that's a big difference between World War B1 and World War B2.
Your generals on the game board, right?
Yeah, well, it's just the Imperium is not losing allies, right? They're gaining. The people are coming back. They're really buying into what the Imperium is selling, and not just the war bonds.
Well, everybody's selling those now.
I think it's easier to motivate people when it's a defensive war, and the Imperium's fighting the defensive war. So I think that makes sense.
Luke Lungen says, also the comment, we'll defend all Keepstars. Let's talk about One Tac S, or otherwise known as One SMEB. What happened there?
It died. It died uncontested. The Imperium narrative is that we'll fight you for every Keepstar. And that's something that they've been pushing. It's absolutely not the case. They'll fight on the Keepstars that they want to fight on. But once the Imperium just didn't, I don't want to say they didn't care about it. It tactically provides no advantage for them. It's just a Keepstar that someone planted down because it's cool. I'm sure it's next to Sacked. No one wants to go into Iridia anyway. It's spooky ghost town out there. Even after M2, where Imperium started taking back Sov and Delve, they never really made any headway in that entire SMEB constellation, which NC. Controlled, I think, through the whole time. So, the jammer's up in SMEB. There's not even a core. There was not even a core in that Keepstar, so you can't tether to it. If you can't tether to it, what's the point of it? The Imperium, they didn't even send a gunner for the final timer.
Yeah.
They just whiffed on it. It died.
Total disrespect for that Keepstar. You don't even get a
it's
gun.
also a range of M2 as well, right? So even if they killed the jammer, they would have to mid, and then PAPI would see that. So
Oh, good point. Well, okay, so not all Keepstars, but I do feel like the messaging coming from the Imperium, well, maybe from both sides, got out over its skis a little bit when they said we won't allow this, we won't allow that. All right, you did that. Okay, well, we won't allow this over here. And I think the latest one, I don't know who told me this, the Keepstar, the Delve is in the wallet. I think that's a pretty funny joke if it was a joke, but like, Delve isn't the whole tri-region area. It's not just Delve. It's not just real Delve. Now it's, the Delve Empire is in the wallet, which kind of sounds like I want ISK, right? Like, like unassailable wealth kind of thing. Like you can't measure it. You don't know what it is.
The real Delve is the friends that they made along the way, really.
That's right. So all the relationships. And there are definitely a lot of good and tight relationships inside the Imperium.
But Suetonia brings out a great point, right? As the Imperium put a huge, huge importance on the Hill Camp in M2, which they did phenomenally. Any other alliance in that situation fails 100% of the time. The Imperium, I think, is the only alliance in EVE that can man a Hell Camp for a month and have a similar number at the start as they do at the bottom. So they put such an importance on that. They did not want to budge any of the supers off of that. So they, of course, were not going to defend any other Keepstar. The Smeb was pretty much the only one that PAPI could go for in terms of ones that were under jammers. But so they definitely were not going to leave that for anything. One of the funnier things that's a little bit of a nuance that happened, PAPI actually dropped a Fortizar and 1DQ that was set to come out, I think, on Wednesday of this week. It died, of course. So PAPI the Imperium saw that and they were like, "Oh, this is a dumb distraction. Like this is a little bit too obvious, right? You're gonna make us form to kill this Fortizar, and then you're going to try and breakout attempt? That's really dumb." The breakout attempt actually was a day before the Fortizar came online, so it was.
That might have been an interesting little.
Just more misdirection.
Yeah, misdirection. That's a great word for it. Also, I saw that Vili, who you would assume would be preparing, was like doing. Was it Trash Talk Tuesday, or he was doing? He was on a media show, and seemed very relaxed there. So more misdirection. I think act like everything's normal, and then a few minutes later they execute this really high risk thing. Right, could have gone sideways for them and essentially ended the war.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just real quick to recap. I think in 2021 so far, most of the story is the Imperium is winning. If you're completely objective, the Imperium was winning for almost all of 2021 in Delve, right?
I like the way you say that, for all of 2021.
Yeah. Now I think it's about more of an even keel. You can argue that because of the Imperium's success in catch and other wares, that they still have an advantage. You'd probably be correct in that. I think you would be, but you could argue either way. I think now it's a little bit more even in Delve. So moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how these guys respond, especially today for the M2 iHub.
Right. We'll check that out. I think it is going to be a measuring contest more than a battle. They're going to size up to see who has, and we won't have seen that since M2, basically all month. But I think they'll bring out everything on both sides. We'll see. But you said in Delve, which was interesting because in another part of the war, Immensia, things seem to be on fire for Legacy, I suppose. Suetonia, do you know much about that? You were telling us, I think.
So or in catch, at least for the last 2 weeks or so, the initiative and I don't think they're officially allied to the Imperium or to initiative generally, but they're kind of the enemy of my friend kind of group, where they're just nuisance people who love to shoot Legacy and shoot them. So you got Dread Bomb, Tickle, Stray Your Post, Salt Farmers, whatever. I always get that name.
Farmers, right?
Farmers.
Yeah, simple farmers.
Simple farmers, that's it. Yeah, simple farmers who have obviously always been like a gate camp, like pain in the ass for Legacy. And I think there's another group too.
Deepwater Hooligans, Dread Bomb, Tickle.
Yeah, Deepwater Hooligans. That's it. So they've mostly just been like slowly deconstructing legacy fortizars and structures there. What Initiative did is I think they like destroyed a lot of key iHubs that had jump bridges. And then once the jump bridges are dead, they can kind of just keep reinforcing fortizars, and it becomes like a big pain for Legacy to form for them, because they generally are able to beat the guys who are in catch by themselves. So if Legacy want to save the structures, they have to like send a Fire Coalition down. Siberian squads used to always like do defense there, but now they're moving up north. And so they've slowly just been bleeding through structures, and now it seems they're turning their attention to Immensia. And recently, a lot of Federation Uprising Sov structures have been reinforced and taken, as well as, I believe, in their main staging system, they lost a lot of their support structures. Like they lost a 38 billion-isk Tatara, as well as Asbel, several Ratarus. I don't think their main like staging... it's just the main staging structure has been destroyed yet, but a lot of the support structures in the system have been destroyed.
Well, how do you think this affects the overall war? I mean, is this hurting them, or is this just land that's already been abandoned? Like, how do we put this in perspective?
Well, I think it is kind of hurting Legacy a little bit by destroying like their backlines, so it's like much harder for them to farm. Like a lot of the routes from Empire Space to Immensia and Catch have been clipped, and simple farmers are really good at gate camping and doing like these huge gate camps between like Head GP down to Catch. So it's a lot more difficult now for like members to move stuff if they're not using like the jump freighter services. And some of the like space that they have to farm has been clipped too. So I think it probably is affecting them. At least I believe the deployment kind of brought Brave out of Quirius, and I think Brave, as of last week, lost every single TCU and iHub that they had in Quirius. So getting Brave out of the war zone was probably really useful. And I don't think Federation Uprising are contributing that much to the Delve War, just because they're quite a small group, right? They're mostly just like an FW Corp that moved into Null, and they normally only bring like maybe 20, 30 guys to like a timer in Delve, so it's not like it's going to change the numbers too heavily for the side of Goonswarm, but you know, like getting these guys to leave so they just can keep doing more damage on the backlines is probably slowly going to bleed Legacy's wallet. And I think that's what they're trying to do, right? Is they're just trying to take away like Legacy's renting money or their allied money away.
Yeah, I don't know. Elise, what do you think? Is this a different war, or is Brave out of Quirius a significant military objective? Or
I mean, I think the initiative is thriving right now, right? And not only the initiative, but groups with them and groups like them for the Imperium that say, hey, you know what, we're more specialized combatants. Us being in the N+1 equation doesn't really help you too much. Let's go in the back lines and light everything on fire. And that's what they're doing right now. Just Catch is burning. Immensia is going to probably be next. This isn't insignificant, right? You can say, oh, well, we can replace this. Yeah, you can easily replace it. But now if you're Brave or if you're members of Legacy that were living in Catch, you feel like you're at war now. You didn't before, because you always had your home, which you knew was secure. You can always go back to it. It was always pacified. There might be simple farmers around there camping gates, but you know what? They're not taking everything you own. You can still freely move around. Now Legacy. Oh, sorry.
No, you finish your thought.
I was going to say, now the people that live in Catch, the members that are in this war, they're feeling a little bit of the burn. And this is what the Imperium wants too, right? They want to sort of shimmy the numbers down a little bit, right? You're talking about Fed Up, maybe they only bring 20 people, but that's 20 people fewer that you have to deal with. Do that to another group. Maybe, you send Brave back to they're going to be jumping back and forth, but maybe you'll lose 30 of them in the jumping back and forth. Maybe someone will say, oh, I want to stay and catch. This is my home. You start shimming those numbers down. You just shimmy them, shimmy, shimmy, shimmy. All of a sudden, the Imperium, the people against them have more numbers, but in the fleets is going to be a little bit more even. And that's the tactic that you want. Or that's the tactic that's going to get you wins and going to get you success in your region.
I pretty much just wanted to agree with the idea that initiative is doing really well over in Brave Space. And it's kind of apparent even from the outside looking in, because for example, as a personal anecdote, I last time I went roaming over in Catch, I had a night where I went there 2 or 3 times, and like every time I went to Brave Space, I was killed by initiative. I like flew through GE TAC and lived, and I was killed by initiative like 2 jumps later. So like, I go to Brave Space and I'm more scared of initiative than I am of Brave, like, because they are over there specifically to kill anything that is straggling, and I'm straggling because I'm the solo idiot, right?
Well, not an idiot, but you're there solo.
Yeah.
and they're ravaging the territory. That's funny. Okay, well, so Immensia, the backfield getting kind of. I wonder if that taking away Immensia and Catch might be just kind of it's like burning the ships behind you. It kind of reinforces, look, we're not going back. So, stick into this war rather than them saying, I'm dispirited. They're destroying my home because I'm on deployment. Maybe that creates pressure to say like, come on, Villy, or come on, Pro God, stop this war. Let's go back and defend our territory instead and just call it a day. Like, I just don't see that in the equation, considering the finality of the rhetoric that's been going on for this. But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's one aspect of it of like, hey, the concept of where we're moving forward, but then when the reality hits you, like the people that living in these areas of space didn't really feel like didn't feel any pressure from the war at home for 5 months. And now all of a sudden they're feeling that pressure, right? So you can have this concept in your head, like, oh, we're at war, we're doing this great stuff. Home is, it's forward now. But then when you come face to face with it, it's a completely different feeling.
Well, I mean, it means something if you have like wife and kids back home and you're, on somebody else's shore, but there's no wife and kids back there. I will
say, comparing this to other wars we've seen where big groups have been fighting other larger groups, in one of the Max campaigns where Band of Brothers and their friends in the South decided to go north and destroy everything in their path. Small groups kind of like the Initiative, right? I think groups that the Initiative molded themselves after, Pandemic Legion and like the early seedlings of Northern Coalition went to Delve and started to burn everything. And it became such a nuisance for Band of Brothers and the people in the South that they actually stopped their campaign or they put it on hold and kind of came back south to deal with it. So like these things do have a significant impact.
Mm. Well, it would be cool if there were incentives to do that. Like, I worry that the game isn't structured that way, but there seems to be no, it's kind of like what counts is where you're at, in your immediate vicinity, and that's it. Like, there's very little strategy to holding territory, it seems like to me. And that's too bad, because I would love to see more of that kind of, it would be great to see people have to leave a war zone to go and take care of their wife and kids that are being ravaged on the farm. That would be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Another thing is like there's a load of uncertainty over like, do we want to abandon this space or not? Because we don't actually know what CCP are entirely doing with like the resource distribution changes. Because if they decide, okay, we're moving everyone to Delve on period basis and Esoteria that's, in these areas, and we're just going to abandon it. And then CCP suddenly makes some changes that makes like owning that space valuable again, they're going to feel really bad about it.
I heard they're only going to put Trit in Delve. So you're going to have to get all of it there.
Super magnet.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go, Kuda. That's what you missed. There's a ton of wealth building in the last few years, but they're moving into a scarcity now where, mining and minerals and stuff.
Trit is only going to be in one random low-sec system in Iridia on every third Friday of the month.
Yeah. It'll rotate.
I was going to say the new mechanics like the DBS make it a lot harder as well to just stack 50 people into the same system now, because you're slowly just going to grind the ISK multiplier down, and so it's going to be a lot harder to feed that many people essentially.
Yeah. Okay. One last thing, I noticed the messaging from Imperium is to try. I thought this was very odd. Trying to convince the opposition, Test and I guess Horde. Actually, I mean, it's really interesting to watch the psychological warfare of trying to wedge between Horde and Test. Like every single message that I've seen coming out of Imperium is structured to either wedge Horde off or wedge Brave off of Legacy. Like they're really trying to drive those wedges, and even to the point where they're recruiting guys on the other side, saying, "Hey, if you'll listen to me, if you don't think I'm crazy," because some guys think I'm crazy, but you don't, right? Because you're an open-minded guy, so you'll listen to me. That you're following the. I mean, have you noticed the messaging getting stronger, or has it always been that way?
I think it's always been that way. Like if you listen to the meta show, the Matani always says, "Oh, NC Dot and Horde are doing everything. You're so strong. You guys are just killing us." And
let me touch your muscles, NC. Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have heard
narrative. The narrative is
the sort of language towards Legacy, right? Is Brave are doing really well, and Brave, if you step aside, we're not going to hold this war against you. We're just going to burn Test. Test is next. So if anyone in Legacy wants to, drop out of the war and see tides with Legacy, or leave the war, then there's some weird kind of amnesty deal where the Matani is probably going to leave them alone. And that's with the golden ticket thing too that he did as well, right? He offered on the lines the ability to get out of the empty hell camp.
He did say yesterday the golden ticket has not been given away yet.
Oh, but then he said maybe it has.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. He's like, golden ticket, it's still available. Oh, wait a minute, we may have given it away, but it's well, which is it? But I love that idea, and it was Elise pointed out how brilliant that was the last few shows. That kind of stuff has always been their strong point for me.
Yeah, that was really funny. But yeah, the entire narrative right now, or the entire idea to break apart PAPI, especially after M2, is to look at people like Horde, look at people like NC Dot and other groups that are in PanFam, and say, hey, why would you follow these guys? You're doing great. I think there was one yesterday where they were like, oh, Vince is, he's going to work. Headliner, oh, he's going to work. He's doing things. Gobbins, he's got his notes at the grindstone. And you got Billy out here on the talk shows, right? So they're really trying to put a wedge in, to break that apart, which is, I mean, that's part of their victory condition, right? The idea is PAPI is a loosely organized group who have been fighting each other. So breaking them apart, getting them to leave would be, or to leave Legacy alone would be absolutely fantastic for them. The unfortunate thing is that even if you take the most cynical approach to it, like even if you are incredibly cynical in just viewing that, Panda Fam are having a great time with this because they're living in the north. They're not like the groups that are living in Catch. They're not feeling the burn anywhere. As this goes on, it's just raw wins. Even if you want to be like a jerk, even if you think Panda Fam are in this to betray Test in the end, them staying in Delve longer, it just makes the game better for them. But I think the initiative is doing the actual work on that sort of messaging. They're making groups that are living in Ketch and Imensia want to maybe reconsider their ties, or maybe saying, this isn't for us, because they're actually turning the screws instead of just saying that the screws are being turned.
Well, and that seems to be their offensive, right? Because clearly Imperium's on defensive. Their territories are being encroached upon. Their structures are being destroyed. So their offense is, well, they can't beat 2-1. Nobody can. You can't beat 2.5-1. I think it gets up to as high as 3 sometimes. I'm not sure. You just can't beat those odds. So you've got to wither away some of that to bring it down to size so you can even compete. So their offense is really the psychological game of trying to disenfranchise players, trying to suppress the numbers. And you're right, Initiative's doing the damage work to make the pain. And then shows like the Meta Show and the Fireside Chat and even their internal talks are doing a lot of the psychological work to try to wither the numbers down. And those seems to be the offense strategy for the Imperium.
Yeah, it's also like an internal rallying cry for your own group as well, right? So even if the PAPI groups don't buy into any of this bullshit, because they don't really, they're having a good time. If you pull like any number from PAPI and ask if they're having a good time, they're like, yeah, this is the most fun I've had any for a while. But that type of messaging from the Imperium side, it's a rallying cry for people within the Imperium as well. They're like, oh yeah, we're really like screwing these guys over. This is great. This is what we're doing. It's gonna work.
And they say the same thing. We're having the best time we've had and whatever. And that's why we're like, hey, this is great. 2 groups think they're winning. 2 groups having a good time. They'll keep this going. And these stockpiles maybe get reduced. And maybe we have a different scenario. By the way, the golden ticket was, it was a free pass. If you paid Imperium some money and you had your Titan stuck, they would actually let you out. That's what the golden ticket is. It's based on Willy Wonka, I think. But that's the funny part. Okay, couple other things here. We talked, we want to talk about Fraternity moving to Vale with Suetonia before he has to take off. What can you tell us? What's going on up there and why are people moving around?
Yeah, so Fraternity, I think at the start of the year, they declared that they're going to move into Tribute and Veil of the Silent because the space has gotten a lot more valuable now with the DBS, the dynamic bounty system. Like owning systems that are really close to low sec is much better now because you want like PvPers and like traffic to come in that you can kill to keep your DBS up high. As Fraternity's like OSM money like halved, I think, after the DBS came in, so they want to keep up the money. And also with the mineral distribution changes, mining in low sec is obviously a lot more valuable now. So being able to like live close to an entry point like P3EN or MTAC-O in Tribute, being able to just go out into low sec through there and mine in areas around there is useful, so you can keep good stocks of certain minerals like Noxium and Isogen that you can't necessarily get too easily in null sec.
So with the dynamic bounty system, basically every low sec system that has traffic has like 180% the maximum bounty level because there's so much PvP in low sec. So the other day, I went below -2 security status after a fleet, and I started hunting some of the security tag clone soldiers, and I was getting like 3.5 million ISK per pop because the DVS was so high in low sec, and I didn't even expect it. I got the best tick of my life in like Metropolis.
Wow. Doesn't that seem to be working? Like, remember how people used to say low sec, there's no reason to be there, and now...
Well, I never used to say that because I've been a low secker for like a decade, but...
You're right.
Yeah.
Misinformed people.
There's quite a lot of people in low sec who would disagree, but I think it is good for low sec because low sec almost always has 180% DPS, especially in like the warzone areas.
The interesting part is, when are we going to start seeing groups move into low sec to take advantage of that? Right now, it's individuals who are like doing their own thing that are winning there, and also groups that have kind of stuck together, right? So if you're friends with Snuff, or if you're friends with Siege Green, you're probably really liking these changes. But if you're not, probably not having the best of time with these changes, right? You haven't seen industrial groups really moving wholesale into low sec because they're it's dangerous, right? Lowsec is super dangerous. It's more dangerous than being in T5 in Delve, right? Anything can happen. Anyone can come invade you because there's really no way to control territory. It's spooky. So I think the jury is still out on if it's going to change Lowsec life. But without a doubt, to RC's point, if you just are boating around in Lowsec, you're getting more money there, and maybe that's incentive enough for people to start moving there, people to start living there, people to start moving their activities to Lowsec.
I don't think it's going to fundamentally change how Lowsec works. I think that it's going to be a boon for the groups that already live in the fires of Lowsec. And that'll put them on more of an equal playing field to maybe the groups in the outer regions in null security space. But I don't think it's going to attract new industrial focused players specifically to Lowsec, because in order to survive in Lowsec, you have to fight all the time and doesn't afraid of anything.
It's kind of, I saw a funny cartoon today. It was about the whole Reddit GameStop thing, but it was Robinhood, right? Because that's the app that's being used to do this. And Robinhood, holds up with his bow and arrow the marshal and takes all his money and he gives it to this poor woman. And so the poor woman has a ton of money. So Robinhood's looking at her like, "Give me your money." And he takes the money from her because she's the one that's rich now. He goes, "Sorry, awkward." But it feels like Lowsec is that woman, right? She's inherited a ton of money because the game systems have made her region of space, lucrative. And now you may start seeing players look at that and saying, "Hey, Lowsec has it's getting too rich. We need to redistribute that back into nullsec or something." So
nullsec has metaliminal storms for the weather. Lowsec has snuffed out who kills everything in a region and moves, right?
Yeah, I think Basgerin illustrates that example really well, right? If you have something of value in Lowsec, someone is going to come and take it from you. Right? You saw the Keepstar and Sordio get cored because after January 12th, they need to have a core in them in order to have repair, tether, and other stuff, right? And that's sort of what Basgerin Keepstar was predicated upon.
For the Keepstar, we tried to actually coordinate among different groups. And we actually formed a fleet of 150 people with 100 tornadoes. And then they land on grid and it's only Titans. It's what the hell are we going to volley? What are we going to volley? The Erebus? I don't think so, right?
It'll take you a while. It's like the little chicken hawk biting on Foghorn Leghorn's leg. Boy, I'm really into the comic strips today. All right. So Tony's going to take off pretty soon. Do you have anything else on Basgerin or Fraternity or any of that? Two different things.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were just talking a little bit about what Fraternity have been doing, but they're now moving. They've said they've moved all of their capitals towards the north. I don't think they've quite arrived yet. I'm not too sure. But what they have done is they've called for all of their English-speaking allies to move into Vale of the Silent, which I think they're staging from HSEC 5 right now. There's actually some pretty good posts on Reddit by the Rote Capel guys, although they are fairly loaded with their own propaganda. So, you might want to...
Conifers merged into Rote Capel, didn't they? Or is that...
Yeah.
Okay, so that's true.
But yeah, so far they've actually been able to pretty much halt most of Fraternity's advances into the north because obviously with the soft system and ADMs and timers, Fraternity have to fight them in US time zone or EU time. I think it's mostly EU time zone for Vale. And with the numbers that Fraternity have versus them in those time zones, they're losing the fights. I think they're about equal in terms of numbers, but because I think those guys are a lot more experienced in fighting at that kind of scale, those numbers, that they're just able to beat Fraternity with equal numbers. So now Fraternity are moving capitals there. They're also trying to pull in their English speakers who probably are more likely to be able to play in those time zones. From Winoco, I think Lord of Worlds Alliance has moved down there now. and a few other no value have been around there. So Winnaco are moving in there now too.
Before you take off, your opinion on can anybody beat Snuff in low sec? Is there a way to counter them, or are they just having their way with any group in Empire?
I think there are some groups that are close to Snuff. The Siege Green, I think, is probably the closest one, the Korean guys. The only thing is that they're in a sort of different time zone to Snuff, so they don't really meet head on all that often. There's also, I guess you could also say, if Wrecking Crew were more focused in low sec, then what they're doing right now with sort of Providence and also being sort of like a loose ally to PAPI, they probably could come close to at least matching Snuff. I don't think in capital numbers, but they could probably bring a lot more subcaps than Snuff can bring.
So if I were wanting to put a structure up, I would say, hey, Siege Green, I want to be your friend. I'll put my timers to your time zone, and I'll pay you a bunch of money. I wonder if that would be a safe way to survive in low sec.
So there's a group in the Amar Minmatar War Zone that's Australian time zone called Serenity Syndicate. And a lot of times when their structures get threatened by a really big group, like dock workers, for instance, a Serenity Syndicate will pass that information along to Siege Green. So that is definitely a viable way to kind of have people who you provide content for that have a vested interest in keeping your structures alive so they get more content.
Yeah, all right. So there's some kind of strategy there, but US EU time zones just dominated by Snuff these days.
Yeah, I was actually I was listening to a podcast. It was Pando's podcast. He had Hai Wantu on it from Snuff, a big FC for Snuff. And he was like, yeah, people give us a lot of credit, but a lot of times we just do random stuff and stuff falls into our lap because either people are trying to carry favor with us, so they'll give us a timer, and they think that, if the first person to bat phone Snuff, well, then, they won't be the ones that get shot, right? Because Snuff is not going to kill the people that give them the intel. And a lot of times he says, we just kind of get lucky a lot of the times, frankly. It's not like we have these huge devious plans, just that there's no one necessarily that can really contest in that thing. But they definitely have it feels wrong to call them a big fish in a small pond, because that seems like diminishing of what LoSec is and what Snuff has accomplished. But they're quite dominant in the position that they have, and people of similar size, of similar dominance, generally tend to go to nullsec groups. So I think that's probably why, because LoSec doesn't really offer too much until you have a certain critical mass and stuff like that.
So I think it's not rude to call them a big fish in a small pond, because becoming as big and powerful as they did is the thing they did, like Super Ray, right? They are a natural disaster because of their size. They go around and they basically burn down an area, and then they go to the next region, because if they stay in one area, it just dies. All the content dies, because very few groups can contest them. And they generally only lose too much when they make a big mistake. Like they did lose like a bunch of Guardians and a couple Legions against a timer in Isbrabada yesterday or the day before. But they must have just done something wrong, because most of the time they're pretty hard to really stand up against, unless everybody else on field allies against them, and when they weren't particularly planning to escalate. Because sometimes they just show up in subcaps and they're not planning to escalate, because a lot of times they'll mid their Titans and then all the content dies, right?
Yeah, so the thing that they are after, right, is what every other PvP alliance is after, right? They're after content, right? Then the type of content they deliver brings more people who are interested in that type of content, so it kind of becomes a self-perpetuating thing, where Snuff becomes even more snuffy, or becomes the caricature of themselves, because the people see this, they have a certain view of it, and they're like, hey, I want to be with those guys. So Snuff grows and as Snuff grows, the guy that used to be in some other group now no longer has that member. So Snuff gets bigger, the other smaller guys get smaller, and the cycle continues.
I think Snuffy makes them sound like you want to pet them or something. It's like a fluffy.
Pet them with lasers.
Yeah, well, like a fluffy dog.
But there are some counterbalances, right? There are groups that might be going a little bit closer. As the war in the North gets more and more interest, I think those groups might say, "Hey, let's look over what's going on in Snuff," because there are some quiet times. Because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of PvPers and people who like the more mid gang focused type of fights that are going to be flocking to the groups in the North because they've been having so much fun. I think the Mittani should just flat out pay Volta and the Freemen of the North like $50 bill a week, just to be like, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully some people in PAPI are going to say, we don't want these big fights. We want these medium fights.
It would be interesting to do the reverse, wouldn't it? Like if you were a group and you say like, well, we're doing our own thing, but we're kind of benefiting you. So why don't you, Imperium, pay us a fee or we'll stop? Like you could see the reverse of that. Would be kind of interesting. Like, I don't know, that might be savvy, right? Like saying, hey, we're doing all this for free. But anyway.
Isn't that kind of what the TTT is?
I don't follow, but
the trading tower, like.
No, I know what it is.
The only reason why, like, everybody who can kill it hasn't killed it is because they're benefiting from it, right? Yeah,
they're paid off, basically. Which Basgerin wasn't paying anybody. It was just under the protection of Imperium, more or less. It wasn't under direct protection, but
clearly wasn't really under protection of Imperium. If I was like the idiot trying to organize a defense for it, one of the various people from different groups, but right.
Yeah. Well. Okay, so Basgerin went down, the Keepstar went down. We covered that during the week, but was there any lessons learned there or anything to talk about or any aftermath or anything? I'm not sure there is.
I think it's kind of indicative of how the Quantum Cores 2 is going to go through the rest of EVE. I think it's a bit of a short-sighted change. I understand the concept behind it, right? To ante up. And I understand that, Citadel spam is bad. But if you look through high sec and you look through low sec, if there's a structure that's cored, now suddenly, instead of just ignoring it because it's annoying to get through, you definitely want to kill it and take that core. So groups in high sec obviously this Basgerin is just an extreme example in low sec, right? Because you have a 30 billion ISK core in the Keepstar and a 20 billion ISK in the Sodio. Obviously, someone's going to come and take that, right? But and Sixth Empire have no military to kind of back it up. They just have some goodwill. People like Arcia went up to defend them, but at the end of the day,
I went up to shoot Snuff. Sixth Empire is red to me.
Oh, there you go. But I think it's really indicative of other things that are going on in high sec too. Because if you're a small industrial group that runs a Retaru, or you have an Astra or something, or let's say you go a little wild and shove an Asbel up to put a market somewhere, suddenly there's a target on your back, because instead of just people ignoring your structure, now there's a billion ISK on the table that I can just take. And there's a good chance that you put this structure down, you can't necessarily defend it from 20 Leshaks that come by and just grind through it. So I think it's something that CCP has to look at. I also don't think they're worried about it too much, because I get the feeling that they have some hashtag regrets about Citadels and they want fewer of them in Empire space.
Yeah.
But
definitely changing. Please finish.
You're going to see in the next 6 months a lot of these Citadels. They're either going to be taken down or they're going to be killed if they're cored or abandoned. And groups are going to have to coalesce into bigger groups in order to defend their Citadels, or they're just going to have to I don't want to say capitulate to bigger forces in order to keep these things up. I think it's the dynamic in high sec is going to be very interesting to watch, and in turn, that's going to make Caleb very happy because there aren't going to be infinite supply lines anymore in high sec. You're going to have to. A lot of the building is going to have to be in stations instead of citadels, and the costs are going to go up there.
Well, I imagine. Cody, you were going to jump in on this one?
No.
Go ahead. All right. Yeah. The I imagine that any new structure that goes up, so any new group that wants to say, hey, let's do this building thing and put together our engineering complex, has to put a core in there. So they have to incentivize people to kill their structure. Will there be any value? Because the core is only necessary for grandfathered ones that are already out there. It's only necessary if you want the tether and the fitting and basically military purposes. But if you just had a complex for building, you don't need any of that stuff. Do you think the people could sell uncored structures or
maybe, but having no fitting is a real pain in the butt, especially if you're doing industry type things, right? Because your freighter is going to come in with expanded cargo expanders on, and it's going to want to leave with bulkheads on, or ice steps to kind of get out of there. So it's kind of a bit of a nuisance. So you're like, screw it, I'll just put the core in. And then all of a sudden, someone like Black Flag comes in and says, "Oh, there's a core here. That's cool.
Oh, look,
you can't do anything to 15 Leshaks. And if you can, I'll just warp off and go to the next one." The opportunity cost is very, very low for them. It's 100 mil to try and take a billion-esque thing out of there. Whereas before it was 100 mil. If I do destroy it, I get about 100 mil in salvage. That's more or less what it was before. So it was kind of an even thing. So it's not worth your time.
Well, you make an interesting point, and you reflect on Caleb's, we need bottlenecks. We need a limitation of building slots. So therefore, building will have to go slower, and that will make everything more valuable. Because right now, minerals are very valuable because they shut off the spigot of asteroids in easy to mine areas, controlled nullsec. And those quantities are now way down. And so this whole era of scarcity on the mineral side of things is one part of it. But then to see, it's harder to convert those minerals to actual equipment because now everybody has to use NPC stations, which are subject to a 10% tax. And I guess it depends on where you build them, what the system index will be, which is another tax basically. So maybe this compounds scarcity, like the core and the lack of structures out there compounds scarcity in a way that we hadn't actually seen before.
What's the status on POSs? What would keep somebody from rolling out a POS and using a POS right now?
People use POSs. We've been using a POS in faction warfare lately, and they've always been popular for wormhole evictions. People still use POSs. Nothing stops anybody from using it.
Can you still do everything you used to do?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why people would prefer to have a structure is that you can kite a POS into a different time zone, right? If you know, the strontium, if you play things right, you can get an offensive POS timer when you want it, right? If you do things right.
I didn't know that. I thought the defender picked the...
You don't pick a date with a POS. You put an amount of strontium in it, so it reinforces for a certain amount of time. So you have to, try to guess when they're most likely to hit it. So you put in the amount of strontium to have it come out at a time you want. But if they hit it at a different time, it comes out at a different time. Right?
I see what you're saying. Right. So instead of them pulling... what do you call it? An alarm clock op to finish something off. They do that to start it off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Twitch chat's saying you can't do industry stuff in POSs anymore. So you can't build.
But I just mean to use. I guess you can't do industry stuff then.
Yeah, you can't build.
I don't even
do invention.
industry is magic to me. I'm part of the chain where the ships get exploded. All right, magic goes in, ships come out. I lose the ships. It's the circle of life.
Never want to fight ever, so I'm on the other end of that spectrum. So I build them.
You guys are the yin and yang of EVE Online.
I built a Harbinger once. Are you proud of me?
Yes. Yeah. Gotta start somewhere.
He got killed in a Harbinger once.
I'm proud of you.
I lost my carrier a couple of weeks ago trying to get out of asset safety. The asset safety is such a joke. I'm learning quickly about how to manage that a little bit better. But yeah, like if you see me flying in anything that isn't cloaky, then you can probably kill me. And you can probably kill me if I'm cloaked.
Where are you these days? You've come back to the game and you're doing what?
I've come back to the game. I'm out in Null with Blades right now. So
right.
Doing a little bit of ratting. I've been going back to high sec and just doing a little bit of mining because I enjoy mining on a Sunday morning with a cup of coffee sort of thing. And then I've been compressing my own trit and moving it back out to Null. So.
Yeah, that's kind of the lifestyle I've been looking for is, cause I think, Blades of Grass have a really cool history and it's kind of a relaxed place, right? Like people are nice and everything.
People are nice. We've got some rules, obviously. We're a bunch of old people. I think everybody's over 30 for sure. So it's really laid back, really kind of focused on just like, it's almost a family, a corp in a way. So, or alliance.
Yeah. That's what I've seen about them. That's really cool. And then you do some stuff in high sec, which is kind of hot right now. Wasn't before, but
that's just a personal decision I do. I don't think there's too many people that actually do that other than me. It's just I've got a bunch of gear in high sec still, and there's definitely lots of risks in high sec. There always have been. You got to watch out for code or safety now. Those guys are really good at what they do. But for the most part, as long as you kind of hide in the shadows. I love to find little pocket systems and stuff like that. So, that kind of stuff is still super fun to me. So
I think something that people overlook a lot is how fun an actual good high sec war is. Like between two sides that are fighting, not between like super deck camper group and solo guy who's never killed anything in his life, right? Like, and this mostly happens with like RP groups who like have like in-character grudges against each other because they're generally the people who like set up in high sec who are willing to fight, right? Because they're only in high sec because they have like a reason to be like in character wise. And good high sec wars, like, it's super fun because you're like hunting through all the other people you can't kill for the people you can kill, and it's a completely different dynamic than any other kind of fighting in EVE. Back like years ago, I used to discount anything that wasn't in my area of the game, and I think a lot of people fall into this trap. I used to be like a low sec, purely low sec PvPer, and I used to like discount anything that wasn't like low sec small gang. Like when I went up against Elise Randolph in the tournament, I didn't know who he was, and I was like, he's some guy from nullsec. He doesn't have his 100 closest friends to press F1. How is he gonna win, right? And now I don't think that anymore. I think everybody in the game is pretty much really good at what they do, and it's like super impressive. And I think low, high, null, wormholes, and all that have really fun parts to them. But I do think a lot of people fall into the trap where everything that isn't the thing that they do is lesser somehow. Because I used to fall into that trap, and I think it's always good to like look around and expand your horizons and try out new things, because there's a lot of fun to be had everywhere.
I think Elise without friends pioneered the jumping out of a battle and completely disappearing. Of course, it was a boundary violation, but he still, made he got away on his terms. So
I wasn't trying to dunk on Elise today.
No, I know. I took the opportunity, but Elise is the friendliest legendary player you'll ever run into. If he were a Pokemon, he would be like a legendary Pokemon. All right. Just a couple notes then from CCP. They have a new fleet finder. Elise and I kind of looked at that, and we noticed that they haven't taken anything away from how you use fleets now, how you get into fleets, how they're advertised. Like all that stays the same, but they added some new stuff. You want to talk about that, Elise?
It seemed to be there are different categories of fleets that you can find. It's easier to join a fleet. It's easier to make a fleet if you haven't done one before. So, just it's one of those things where you kind of love to see it, where CCP adds a new feature without removing one that you liked before. So you have all the same functionality you had before. You even have the same interface if you want to rely on that one. But now there's a new one that lives in the agency window. And we were chatting about it before. There's an entire generation of players that have started the game in the last 2 years that when they start EVE Online, the agency window pops up because that's what they want. And that's how they interface with the world and get a lot of information. The rest of us have unchecked that box and probably never go to the agency unless there's something weird that we need there. Right? I think the only time I've gone to the agency in the last month was to look at the
agents.
DBS, and that's it. That's pretty much the only thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is, Coda? The
DBS. The agency. No, I use that, and I've been using the agency for locator agents because we've been trying to track some people down, and so it's definitely I see the benefit of it. It's a great tool for sure.
And the radial menu actually allows you to play with one hand, right? Just your mouse hand, and that's good for smokers. I think that was like the
again, Caleb will be happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also an entire generation of players that use the radial menu for EVE Online stuff, and there's a generation of players that have unbound that button, like myself, and I never use it for anything.
So I know how to add delay to it, but can you remove it? I hate it.
I'm pretty sure you can remove it. I'm pretty sure I have removed it. Maybe you could just change the
you can change the delay so it pops up less. I don't think you can remove it.
There's some really good functionality with it, but it's just too cumbersome. I'm too much of a boomer. I can't get used to it.
No, I like the right click. And I'm always like so shocked when I say, okay, we're at the top station. And they're like, what do you mean top station? Right.
I love
right
that.
click in space. Right click in space. Right.
Top Station, yeah. We almost called this show Top Station, actually.
Top Bell, Amamake, right, Elise? Pandemic Legion, is Pandemic Legion still in Amamake? Or has like 10 years gone by?
We have a monument there, so we're always there in spirit. I also have a bunch of ships there that I never moved out, but...
Are they Alliance tournament ships?
Nope.
Can't say.
All those are in Jita.
Oh, okay.
I have mine in Amar.
Have you sold anything on Hyperlink, Elise? You have some expensive stuff. You have some jewelry.
When HyperNet came out, I was really into it. I was like, "Oh, this is the best." I just love the dynamic of it. I love like clicking stuff and then seeing the little guy move over, and you're like, "Oh, am I gonna win? Am I gonna win?" But then I kind of forgot it existed. I think like a lot of players just completely forgot it existed. And now I pretty much only use it when I'm like really exceedingly bored. And I want to do something dumb. Like, I want to fly a Leshak for this one thing, or I want to, fly a weird fit. And I look at the cost of it, I'm like, it's not worth it. And I'm not sure I even want to do it. But then I'll go on the HyperNet and I'll be like, well, I'll buy 4 tickets. And then if I win, I'll know that it was meant to be, and I'll go ahead and do it, and I'll have saved a bunch of money doing so. And if not, then that's Eve's way of saying, you didn't want to do that anyway. So that's essentially what I use the HyperNet for now.
To see what fate has in store for you.
To shake the magic 8 ball to see what the Eve gods have in store for me.
That's actually an interesting use of it. This guy, Sergeant Johnson, says, I disabled HyperNet on both my accounts to save myself ISK.
The only time I ever used HyperNet is when right after the Abandoned Citadel change, when I was playing with a group of people and we were bashing the Abandoned Citadels, and a lot of the stuff that dropped from the Citadels was given away via, all right, here's a private hypernet, and everybody can buy one ticket, and if you buy more than one ticket, we don't let you in anymore. And that's kind of how they divvied up stuff. It wasn't my favorite way of divvying up stuff, but like it was as fair as any other way, I guess.
Yeah, my favorite use for HyperNet was actually fundraising. Apparently, you put in an item, and it's not a bad item. It's like, say, a T2 cruiser of some sort. And you say, okay, guys, this is worth 300 million, let's say. And this is a fundraiser. So if you guys buy tickets for 8 tickets for 100 million, somebody will get something good, and you will help us raise money for whatever it is that we're raising money for. So it was a way of people to kind of get a little possibility of getting a little something for something they wanted to do anyway. I thought that was an interesting way of using that.
I love these guys in chat. They're like, you can petition CCP to remove your access to HyperNet if you can't, behave yourself.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I thought that guy was a smart guy. He's seriously, if you have any kind of, I don't know, addictive problem or compulsive problem, like you want to keep yourself from being in the situation in the first place. That'll keep you straight, and that's a good strategy. I wonder if
they could just remove my ability to sit or undock a capital, because I just seem to lose those too often, and that would be helpful, I think.
They do offer that. You can just extract those skills. There you go.
That's true.
That's true.
Good point.
All right. Quality of life. The last thing, we'll see some of this stuff coming soon. Did you guys? I don't know if you looked through the list. Maybe I'll just read a few here. But remove cost of changing the home station. Okay, that was nominal. The redeem queue can now be redeemed directly to your home station. So if you're moving your character around, people would have to wait until they got back to their home station to actually redeem their queue, all the gifts that come to them. Now you could just do it wherever you're at and say, yeah, just put that in my home station, please. And that's, again, quality of life kind of a change. They moved the Clone Bay window to the character sheet. I don't understand what that is, but
so is it not on the side with the station services anymore, or is it just an additional button?
I hope it's additional, because I'm gonna forget about that.
Yeah.
I still look to the bottom left to try to undock.
Yeah. Boy, that's.
I popped a clone today, so you can definitely it's still in the station hangar button.
All right. Well, these might be coming soon. This is what's proposed or what's coming. So add a home station to your indicator on the map, which is kind of interesting. So you can see where I think a lot of this stuff is to give a lot of these quality of life changes are for new players to get a better sense of up, down, left, right, to give them a context of their own situation. So
but
where it kind of, where
there's no up in space.
Oh, you're right. Their sense of, for us veteran players, a lot of this stuff will get in our way because we have to relearn something that we kind of had locked down. But for newer players, just like the fleet up thing is it's definitely for them. And by the way, I'm going to make a T-shirt, Arcia, that says "I like the left click" or "I like the right click."
The right click.
I like the right click. Yeah. That's very Eve.
Top station, warp top station. Top belt.
Yes, I think that's it. There's something else about booster duration. Oh yeah, booster duration is now displayed in human readable terms. So booster duration won't be 90,000 seconds. It'll be 30 minutes or something.
I had a weird bug with a booster last night where it reached 0 and it just stayed in the top left at 0 duration for the rest of the night or something.
Like to say hello to Mr. Deep. I'm not going to say your full name again. I already did that earlier but it's good to see you. He was the gunner inside the Basgerin Keepstar from Sixth Empire. Nice guy.
Oh, what are the big graphical updates? Is they're bringing the new jump tunnel animation back, and
that's right.
So that'll be interesting. They've had it before, but it ended up removing quality of life, right? Because it would be a beautiful graphic, but it would make jumping systems that much longer just to watch the beautiful things. So they removed it, went back to the drawing board, and they're bringing it back. So it's on the test server right now. You can see what it's like.
Is that where the ship is flying through the tunnel?
Yeah,
that was the original one. Yeah, I haven't gone through. I feel bad. I missed the mass test for it, but
that's interesting. That I wondered what happened. So they had a problem with it, and they had to pull it to retool it. I didn't know that.
Well, it just players complained because it would take, instead of jumping systems taking 10 seconds, it would now take 40 seconds. And in tie-dye, it would take even longer. So a bunch of players were like, hey, this looks cool, but it's worse. Can I disable it? And CZ were just like, yeah, let's dial this one back.
Well, that's cool.
When I look at it, it makes the game look hokey to me. However, somebody pointed out, again, for new players, it gives them context of what their ship is doing.
So I wanna know, how are we seeing it? Because normally what happens is the camera drones dock to the ship. Because the way you see your ship is through camera drones. Because you're plugged into your ship, your mind is plugged into the ship, and the way you see it is the camera drones flying around the ship. So like when you go through a jump gate, normally the drones dock to the ship, and that's why you don't see your ship. But I guess the camera drones are jumping through the gate behind the ship now for some reason. Like how are they going to explain that?
Well, looking at the graphic that we just saw, the jump drone has to jump first because your ship catches up to the visual space, and then your ship zooms off. Yeah, the camera drones. And then it zooms off, so it leaves the camera drone behind, or at least one of them. And I don't know, but you're right. They totally violated their lore by having that.
Like, they can just say that the drone isn't docking, I guess. But like, it's just kind of weird that they went with that change now.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It'd be interesting to kind of make that graphic look in a way that it worked with lore as well. Because there it just kind of looks very video gamey. And I know it's for new players to give them context.
Online is not a video game.
Exactly.
It's a way of life.
Exactly my point. I just got, and we'll end here, but I was called out on the Praise Bob Discord, which is unusual, for a comment that I made where I said, hey, I was suggesting stuff on our CCP Please channel that we have on TIS Discord, right? Where you can just put suggestions and CCP, may or may not read them there, but other people can vote on your suggestions. So you can kind of see what's really popular and what's like really not, depending on who's participating. But, every once in a while I get kind of like, sugar drunk and put stuff in there that doesn't make much sense to people. And I wrote, what about buying a permit from Concord that immunizes you to PvP so you don't have to participate in that in case you just want to be social and you don't want to be docked all the time? You can go out and just kind of hang out. And
that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, that's exactly what I heard from the Praise Bob guys are like, this is a PvP game. Like, why don't you play something
That would
else?
ruin what the game is. That would be, if you ever played Ultima Online way back when they made Tamil and Felucca, the PvP and the non-PvP regions, and it just killed the game, right? That was back in like 2000 or so when that happened.
How did that kill the game?
Because people would go get all super strong in the PvE area and then go to the PvP area and kill everybody. And like they wouldn't risk it. Just the PvP area became a ghost town. A lot of the stuff that made the game interesting just died off and it became another game.
So my reflection was that some people just want to be social in the game. They really just want to chat.
So a lot of people do want to do that, and that's fine. You stay docked. You use the chat system, right? You stay docked if you don't want to get shot, basically. There are a lot of people who will log on to EVE and RP in the chat system, and like they'll be like, my character is doing something in the station, and that's what they do, and that's fine. But once you are in space, you need to be a target for Eve to be Eve.
Okay, well, I mean, we pay for insurance to insure the stuff that gets blown up. So this was kind of an idea of the reverse of that. Why don't I pay for security? Like, in retrospect, maybe you don't pay for immunity, but you pay for a stronger response time. Like you have Concord fees, right? And the people who pay a lot get almost like private security that will eliminate a threat before it actually destroys your valuable items. What do you think of that?
Sounds more fun. The thing that always blew my mind as a new player was, why doesn't Concord respond to rats in high sec? Like, I just never understood it. I was like, well, this just doesn't make sense.
RC can probably help me out, but lore-wise, the Concord is only there to nullify and punish capsuleers.
That's not true. Concord does a lot of different things. The Concord rapid response system is specifically aimed at capsuleers. And Concord has some ability to control and regulate capsuleers. They're not all powerful. Otherwise, anybody who helped the Triglavians would have been shut down, for example. But one of Concord's jobs, one of their many jobs, is to regulate and control capsuleers. And that's kind of what the rapid response system is to do. There's no reason why they couldn't do it against NPCs, but kind of what you have to hand wave is that a lot of NPCs, there's tons and tons and tons of ships that you can't see flying around the EVE universe. Most civilian traffic isn't on capsuleer sensors. So Concord is busy dealing with a lot of stuff. Anything you see is basically Concord saying, we don't have the manpower to deal with this, so let's hope capsuleers can shoot it. So any of the rats you see, there's going to be tons of rats that you don't see that Concord's killing, right? Or that the local navies are killing. But if you see something, generally, they want you to see it. So it's in my head canon kind of, and this isn't official. It's okay. We see some angels over here. Let's make it so they show up for capsuleers and hope the capsuleers deal with it because we don't have the manpower right now.
I like head cannon. It just has a great visual, giant cannon on your head.
And that's why they pay you for it too, right?
All right. Well, I'm going to work on this idea, Arcia, and then I'll get back to you, and you can knock it down again and again and again. But I was wondering, what is the game servicing? So the point that I was getting at was that I was called out because this game is about PvP. We all agree with that? Or is there room for this game being about more than PvP or other things? Or is it PvP plus other things?
So part of PvP is avoiding PvP if you don't want it.
That is PvP, right?
Yeah, part of PvP is producing stuff and selling it and trying to sell it at better prices or undercut or sell more than your components than your opponents to control a market. I think it's about PvP. It's not necessarily all two ships shooting each other, but I think the game at its core is PvP.
Well, that's the thing. When people say PvP, and I guess when I was saying it too, we're talking about spaceships, pew pew pew, kapoof. But PvP is player versus player.
Yeah, you've got market PvP, you've got just personality PvP in the meta. Langtheris, who used to be on the Cat Stable show with us, dude loves the meta. It's his jam, So you've got all different types of aspects of PvP, that just aren't necessarily blowing each other up, for sure.
And also evasive maneuvers are player versus player, right? You're the mouse. That's
wasn't that one of your people of the year? Was the explorer who hit all the systems without dying? I mean, what an accomplishment! That's amazing,
Best PvPer in the game. That's what I said. Being able to do. I mean, that's maximum. That's 100% on your test, right? If that's what you consider player versus player, and I do, because again, it's players playing and outplaying one another, and he wasn't outplayed. I know it's I don't know what the word is, esoteric or
everybody has their own definition of what is successful to them. If I didn't lose any ships, I wouldn't consider myself successful because in my head, if I'm not losing ships, I'm not pushing myself, right? My own personal boundaries. I think in my head, if I'm pushing my own personal boundaries, I'm dying a lot of the time, right? So that's kind of how I think about it. But everybody has their own kind of goals and success conditions that they define, and that's one of the things that makes Eve, like, because it is a sandbox, right? What is successful for you for what you're doing might be different than what's successful for me for what I'm doing.
Exactly. But I don't see EVE Online as one game, first of all. Second of all, much less a video game. It's more of a lifestyle, a virtual world, a sim, a place to communicate with other people. That's what makes it interesting to me. I can kill 100 rats and not get much satisfaction out of that. I can collect 100 ISK and not get much satisfaction out of that. But if I make a new friend, for instance, that's kind of interesting. Or, I realize who I want to stay away from. That's interesting too. So there is a social aspect to EVE. I think that's undeniable. But why not say, well, you can engage in that, without the setbacks, but you can't get ahead. I think that's what would be fair. I wonder if that wouldn't attract different kinds of players. I think that's what ambulation was supposed to be all about. Walking in stations was supposed to be about attracting a different kind of player that wasn't interested in that, but wanted to be social, wanted to be decorative, ornamental, whatever.
Did you ever see the original trailers for the walking stations before they revamped it for Incarna?
Yes, that was amazing.
What we missed is so... No, it was amazing. Don't be sorry. You're right. Like,
I cut you off.
We missed some... No, it's fine. That's conversation. Yeah.
It was... You were saying you liked it. It was neat, right? Well, one of the things that we really lack in EVE, and it's so interesting that such a small change made a difference for this. So I'll get to that in a second. But the Incarna, pre-Incarna, like Incarna, I wasn't a huge fan of. But before that, the ambulation before that, where you walked in and you saw that big battleship and you could see the scale. You could say like, oh, that's how big that is. And it was much bigger than you thought it was. And so EVE, they say like, in EVE, they could try to build in scale, but you'll just zoom out and then everything looks small and it doesn't make a difference. So why bother putting all that work into scale? But all they needed to do, and they did it, was put a little icon of a man floating in space after you get blown up. And you can see now, like from that little character, you can see how big a cruiser is compared to that little character. And it started to, plus they also put in like fog so you could see dimensional stuff. And they've done a lot of things. Abyssal space, you can definitely see scale in it. You can feel scale. But I thought all that was interesting. And Incarna was, ambulation was a big part of like giving you a sense of wonder again, that these things are really big. They do have big crews. When you blow up a ship, you lost a lot of people in that ship. Raising consequence and maybe rarefying combat, I feel makes it more important, makes it more vital than using ships as ammunition, which is what you kind of should do in order to play the game a certain way, as you were saying. Don't get too attached to anything. Get out there and grind through it. And equipment is just equipment. Ships are basically ammunition, that sort of thing. And then you'll play the real EVE, according to some people.
So the thing is, both of those takes are completely correct. Capsuleers treat ships as ammunition, and there's people aboard all the ships we fly.
They treat them as ammunition.
Capsuleers, like every single one of us, is a mass murderer. The EVE universe... It goes into the EVE universe being so dark. It's one of the darkest universes I've ever seen. Every faction has done incredibly horrible stuff, from like slavery to genocide to like if there's a bad thing, you can name it, and somebody in the EVE universe has done it, right? And that's part of what makes the whole thing interesting, because not every individual person might be badly motivated, but pretty much everybody ends up doing bad stuff because of the terrible circumstance of being in this world.
Well, that's a really good way to put it. All right. Okay, well, we'll take the rest of this conversation offline in Discord and hang out there. I want to say thanks to Arcia and Elise, Kuda, and Sutonia, who was here earlier, and also our engineer, McLeod, showing you some of those images. Is there anything you guys want to end with? Like, do you have a shout out or a piece of advice or anything? Any last thoughts?
My piece of advice is I want to see a big fight in M2 today, so you guys should undock.
That's happening in a few hours, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, the timer is at 21:30, which means people will start being in the system. And there's also timers in that same constellation, so there's going to be some overlap. I'd expect people start forming in about an hour or so from both sides, and then they'll just be spread out. So that should be fun to watch. Keep an eye on that. Also want to give a shout out to Rain Chocolate, an Eve streamer who just made a Twitch partner this week. She's been streaming Eve for 4 or 5 years now. She's one of the original Eve streamers. So congrats on that milestone. She actually made Twitch partner before she made Eve partner. So good.
Really?
Good for you. Yeah.
That's an old
She's
name.
an Eve.
Yeah, no.
She's an Eve partner, though, right?
No, not yet. It may be in a month.
Oh, that's a sure thing. She's got to be an Eve partner. And
She was in Twitch chat earlier. I don't know if she's still there.
Probably getting prepared. I think she streams a lot of live coverage too, which is good. If you are not subscribe to. Is it Chocolate Rain or Rain Chocolate? Does it go back and forth?
And Twitch.
I think it's just Rain now, isn't it?
Well, but on Twitch, it's Rain Chocolate on Twitch.
I think it's twitch.tv/Rain, RAHNE. I think she removed the chocolate.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So but surprising to me that not surprising she got Twitch partner. That's great. It's surprising to me she wasn't a CCP partner yet. She probably should be. There's a picture of her. And if you click on that picture of her, oh no, it's just Rain face. So where's that? Yeah, Rain. You're right. You totally called it.
She's actually doing, if people are wondering what she's doing right now, there, Ithaca Hawk, who designed the beautiful Eve map, like the Eve lore map. He's running a D&D campaign with some Eve players, and I think Rain's one of them. Cool. That's going on right now on Ithaca Hawk's channel.
That is cool. I like that stuff. All right, guys. Thanks very much. We will... Arcee, did you have anything else? No? All right.
I'm good.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, guys. Appreciate it. We will see you again next week on Talking in Stations.